Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our customer interview webinar. We are joined by Tam Nguyen, Director of the Office of Performance and Accountability for the City of Virginia Beach. Today, he will be giving us an inside look at how their city manages strategy. Interviewing Tam will be Ted Jackson, one of ClearPoint Strategy's two founders. The audience will be muted for the duration of this webinar, but we encourage you to submit any questions into the Q&A tab. Ted, I'll go ahead and pass things on to you.
Thanks, Jenna. And Tam, thanks for joining us and spending time with us today to share your story. Let's start. Can you give me an overview of the Office of Performance and Accountability at Virginia Beach?
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me, of course. OPA, Office of Performance and Accountability, we're leading the implementation of a comprehensive performance management program by way of Virginia Beach Stat, VB Stat, VB Performance, and VB Strategy. And beyond these three programs, we also serve as essentially the right arm of the city manager's office, working on several different projects. We're a very lean office with 18 members here, 4 of whom are analysts.
Okay, excellent. I would love to hear. We'll be asking questions, I guess, a lot about the VB Stat, VB Strategy, and VB Performance. Before we do that, how long have you been at Virginia Beach, and how has your position evolved?
I've been with the city for about a little bit over 3.5 years now, since October 2019. Started off as an analyst and now currently serving as director of this office. So I run the office, lead the team, manage the department budget, and so on and so forth. Essentially just ensuring that we are achieving our mission of being a trusted resource for driving progress and results for the city.
Oh, excellent. So a lot of people have a performance management office, but I've never heard of it kind of having these 3 components. So let's jump into the first component, VB Stat. Like, tell me what it is and how does it work? Sure.
So it's modeled after CompStat, and it's a good way of providing focus on performance for areas of organizational priorities. So of course, stats change as organizational priorities change and as goals and objectives are accomplished. So we've had several stats in the pipeline, and those have actually graduated because some of whom have actually graduated because of the substantial progress they've made. And the cadence and intentionality of these meetings keeps these priorities top of mind. Some stats meet bi-weekly, some monthly, and there's been remarkable feedback in terms of shifting some of the culture with data-informed management. So we love it so far.
So is it in the real format of a stat meeting where someone's on the hot seat and you're really pushing them? Like, can you give me an example of a recent meeting you attended?
Sure. So one of the recent meetings is, let's say, Rescue Stat, which is focused on response times. Emergency response times, and the city manager for each of the stats, the city manager and senior leaders serve as the panel for each of the stat meetings. And the key stakeholders, those who are involved, relevant to the chosen areas of focus, of course. So in this case, for Rescue Stat, EMS, 311, 911, as well as fire department. IT also involved. They are the ones who are providing the updates, highlighting key progress, challenges that they might be encountering, and we make decisions in real time based on the information they provide us.
And so is like Rescue Stat kind of living solely in VB Stat, or does it also, I guess, interrelate with some of the rest of the performance management office?
There's connective tissues to some of the VB Stat with what we'll discuss later with VB Performance, which are the departmental initiatives. But there's, of course, there's interdependencies, but we want to make sure that there's value added for each of these meetings. So each meeting will be different. Gotcha.
Well, let's jump to VB Strategy overall. Like, what is that?
So that refers to our 2-year strategic plan for the city, which is led by City Council's vision and leadership, but it's also influenced by community feedback. Essentially, the program VB Strategy translates the vision and goals into an actionable strategy that guides the organization's work and resource alignment. So currently we have 5 key focus areas in the strategic plan. And on a quarterly basis, we'll meet with key stakeholders in each of those key focus areas to talk about highlights and challenges and so on and so forth. And then on a biannual basis, we'll actually publish performance reports. So a mid-year one and then a year-end one to ensure that we are transparent about our goals, focusing our efforts, and accountable for the results.
And are you using ClearPoint for VB strategy?
We are now. We're actually using it for VB strategy and VB performance. Prior to that, which I'll probably dive into a little bit more detail later, prior to that, we were using Excel spreadsheets, which is good and great. But as you know, there are limitations to that as well.
Right. And how many components are there in this strategy overall?
So there's 5 key focus areas, but each key focus area will lend itself to more objectives or tasks. And then underneath the objectives or tasks will be key performance measures that we want to measure to evaluate performance and progress for each of those key focus areas.
So people probably that are familiar with ClearPoint would know, okay, we have the objectives and the measures. That's pretty straightforward. Are the focus areas like separate scorecards, or are they just like categories inside of
They
ClearPoint?
are separate scorecards, so that's a good question. And I can go through it a little bit later or now if you'd like, but we actually created separate scorecards because we thought that would lend itself to the best visualization, because there's different stakeholders for each key focus areas. So we only give access to each scorecard for the relevant stakeholders. That way they're not seeing anything and everything, not for a lack of transparency, but just in terms of focusing on what they need to be focused on. But it is public facing in terms of the actual strategic plan out there. So.
Right. No, it sounds great. I would love to see it. We always get questions when people want to share, and it's actually what you described is an interesting pain point that a lot of our clients see, which is we try to put everything into ClearPoint, which is great because I can have everything in one place, but everything can get overwhelming. So I just wanted to point out to anyone listening, like that idea of segmenting out so individuals see just the area where they're focused on is really a great way to allow, someone in one of those focus areas to look inside of ClearPoint and see kind of a simple version of it. Whereas where you manage multiple programs in there, you can filter and see everything.
That is actually one feature that I really appreciate about ClearPoint, is being able to selectively access certain scorecards for certain stakeholders. Again, not for a lack of transparency, but just so that they can focus on what their responsibilities are. So.
Right. Oh, that's great. Do you want to share some of the VB strategy?
Oh, sure. I will share my screen if you can just let me know when you can see it.
Not yet.
Not yet. I apologize for the delay.
No problem at all.
Is it working?
It is not that I can see. Typically, sharing the screen is going to pop up a window to give you multiple options to share. You select one, and then you need to hit.
How about now?
Here it comes. Yes. Oh yeah.
Yes. Sorry about the delay, folks. I appreciate your patience. All right. So I've already logged into ClearPoint just to make it a little bit quicker. This is the landing page for the strategic plan. So just bear in mind that what I'm showing you is my view as the administrator. So I can see, of course, all of the scorecards. So there's 5 key focus areas listed down here: 21st century infrastructure and so on. And then underneath the splash page are the separate scorecards. So if you click on the first key focus area, you'll see 21st century infrastructure here. The intentions behind this key focus area, why this is important to Virginia Beach, and then the tasks or objectives, and then the milestones within each task, and then performance measures peppered throughout. But if you click on each of these scorecards here, same format, different information, of course, relevant to the key focus areas.
So then are you having meetings on each of the key focus areas? Is that how that
Yes.
works?
Yes, we have a quarterly meeting with the city manager so that we can discuss highlights and challenges, as well as progress, of course, too. We really want to make sure that we celebrate wins because that's something that local government doesn't do quite enough of, I think. And it's good affirmation and for the stakeholders, but also the city manager to know that we're making progress here and there, but then also he can hear about the challenges that we're facing. And those meetings are an opportunity for us to identify any synergies as well, any cross-pollination of ideas that may come out from these meetings, because these departments don't always talk to each other just because there are natural silos in the work that they do. So these meetings are an opportunity for one, to hear each other's progress, but two, to see if there's another, it's a platform to talk about the synergies that may occur.
So in thriving neighborhoods, you may have public safety, economic development, transportation, like all
Housing and neighborhood preservation, libraries. So each key focus area will have an executive champion that leads multiple, about 6 to 8 department directors. So it's a very structured approach to this, to making this actionable.
Great. And I also saw some interesting status indicators. Are you trying to avoid red, or is there some other code to it?
No, we do not avoid red. That thought did cross my mind, but we want to make sure that if things need to be highlighted, then they are highlighted as such. There's no reason to mask any challenges out there. This platform for VB Stat, VB Strategy, as well as VB Performance is to ensure that we capture those challenges, not just the wins, but so that we can discuss opportunities for improvement, whether it's streamlining processes, creating efficiencies, improving service delivery. We want to make sure that the city manager and senior leadership hear about that. So red is kind of the same nomenclature of like accountability. You hear that negative connotation, but truly it's about, hey, how do we fix this? What's the solution? It's not about highlighting, hey, you did this. Now it's really about progress. So we want to strive towards progress is the end game.
Okay, excellent. Well, let's jump into VB Performance. So how's that different from VB Strategy and VB Stat?
So VB Performance, department performance plans are the hallmark of VB Performance. So each department has a 2-year performance plan that outlines their key initiatives. And aligned with those initiatives are performance measures that, again, to evaluate progress and performance. And I can show you what we've captured in ClearPoint if you like, or at the end if time allows. Okay.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Now that I can share my screen, hopefully seamlessly, I will try that again. Let me know when you can see it.
We're in.
All right. So this is the strategic plan. Diving into the DPPs, Department Performance Plans, this is the splash page for it. So you have all of the departments that are listed here. These are departments that are on the purview of the city manager. So we track all of their DPPs. I'll click on one, say libraries as an example. So this is the banner that we've created for libraries. All of the other ones are similar in terms of format and structure. Department director, mission and vision, performance plan highlights. Again, it's a 2-year performance plan. And then we've captured some resources here, expenditures and revenues budget, personnel summary, and then some metrics. And these are all public facing because they're included in our operating budget. Recruitment and retention statistics, performance updates, and these are updated on a monthly basis, but we meet with the city manager on a quarterly basis for these.
That's great. Looks like the top half is a bit like a budget book. And then the bottom half has like all the actions that you're taking,
Right.
as a result there.
So again, in the same format, which ClearPoint really lends itself well to in terms of structure and format, is being able to have those boxes that are already templates for objectives and initiatives, milestones, and of course the KPIs, the key performance indicators. But as you mentioned with budget, we leverage the DPPs and even the BB stat and performance. These meetings are an opportunity for the city manager and senior leadership to hear about some of the challenges, of which may be resource constraints. So we have used the information from these plans, these programs to support budget justifications for these key initiatives. So it's really good that we've captured it on here to make things more streamlined, because at one point before ClearPoint, the budget department and their analysts would track down these same metrics from the departments. Now they have access to ClearPoint. So it's kind of a one-stop shop for not only our OPA work, but to streamline some of budget's work as well, budget department's work.
That's great. Do some of these, the DPPs, do they ever link into the strategic plan, or do you keep them kind of separate ways of managing?
We try to keep them separate so that there's of course some overlap, but to make sure that we're intentional about each meeting and each focus, we want to make sure that there are different items in their own initiatives, because these are initiatives that they're tackling within their own mission, departmental mission. And the BB Strat and BB Stat are more holistic with collaboration in other departments and key stakeholders. So it's not mutually exclusive, but there is some synergies among the programs.
No, it's great. And do you get, like I think you said, library might meet monthly? Do all the departments run on the same cadence, or how does it work?
That's a good question. It is a quarterly cadence. So we have time earmarked with the city manager to talk about their DPP meetings, but because there's so many departments, as you can see, they're not obviously on the same day.
Right.
So they're peppered throughout the entire fiscal year. So we manage in a way where they're essentially batched together in certain quarters or certain weeks of the month. So that they're all together, and then there's a break so that we can have internal meetings, OPA in the department, and then we meet again with the city manager, and then a break, and then so on.
I mean, this looks like smooth and amazing, and it's all in there. Like, how did you tell me a little bit about the rollout process? Like, did everyone, if I look at it from agriculture to aquarium to budget to city manager office community, like, did they all just come running in and say, we'd love to report on all this stuff, or did you have to throw mandates in, or how did you get it all going?
Well, we are fortunate in our space, the OPA office, that we have the support, the full backing and support from city leadership and the city manager. So everyone, all the departments are aware of that, of course, and they too want to make progress. So I think there's a lot of buy-in and vested interest from departments to make sure that, hey, this is also an opportunity for us to report out to the city manager on the wins, on celebrating those highlights that we're making progress on that he may not be aware of, or to give more detail on those, as well as communicating those challenges to him and city leadership. So there is a vested interest, but of course, culture doesn't change overnight. So it's been an incremental shift and will continue to evolve. The rollout with this was crawl and then walk, and then we are continuing to refine this, and hopefully we'll be expanding this in the near future. But that's kind of been the tone and posture of this. The city manager is very he's very much data informed, and he's has a vested interest in making sure that he's aware of all of the key challenges for organizational priorities, so that we can move the needle for the entire organization and thereby for the entire community. So we serve each other so that we can better serve the community.
No, it's all great. And So you've been using ClearPoint about 2 years?
Actually, only a year, I'd say a year, June of about a year. Has
Okay,
it been a
so
year?
about a year. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's right. And so how much of VB stat, VB strategy, and VB performance is a year old, or how much was it just going on in a different format and now you have it kind of all integrated into one tool?
So we have VB strategy and VB performance in here.
Right.
Previously, I think I mentioned that we were using Excel sheets to track all of that, which is, again, good and great. Nothing wrong with spreadsheets, but as you know, it gets cumbersome when you have 24 tabs open. So, and you have to dive into each one. So we've used ClearPoint to modernize this process, one for data collection, but tracking and analyzing as well, because what I love about ClearPoint is the fact that the graphs are so malleable. You insert data and it can just spit out data. So there's an automation feature in there, but you can play around with the graphics and visual aesthetics of it as well. But it is a good tool to collect data, because it's streamlined a lot of that process where we've had to essentially provide folks the Excel sheets. They would have it, and then we would consolidate it to have a master spreadsheet, which, again, with multiple tabs gets a little bit cumbersome. With the polish and refinement of website aesthetics, it's just a lot easier to digest. So we've appreciated that. We haven't yet put VB stat on here, just because the dynamics of that makes it a little bit more challenging. But what we're aiming to do, and what we have already started doing, is incorporating more citywide projects into here, like tracking ARPA. So this is not done, by the way, but this is a mock-up with real data. See, we're not shy to highlight the red here.
Right.
Because it keeps it top of mind, whatever is red, but then celebrating some of the greens here. So this is part of that tracking. We've incorporated some of our VB stat items in here, but not all the stats. So one thing we're tracking is permits and inspections. So we're collecting that data and capturing it here into a scorecard. Some of our other plans, sustainability plan, we've, again, similar to the strategic plan, we've created a splash page for their overarching plan, but then segmented that into separate scorecards for each of the what we call elements or focus areas. So again, this is a mock-up. It's not fully fleshed out, but it's definitely a working process. But that's our aim, is to refine what we have, but expand it so that we can incorporate more into this, and having that holistic view of all the citywide projects and OPA work as well.
No, that's great. We got a question also from the audience. Do you ever run reports that pull in data from multiple plans so that you could summarize information that may not just live in one of the departments?
We haven't yet. That would be actually a good opportunity to do that for perhaps a comprehensive year-end report, we would actually love to do. That cuts across all three of the programs, so stat, strat, and performance. So that's actually a great suggestion, but we haven't yet done that.
Yeah, and it's something, just to make sure I also answer a little bit of that question. It's something that's certainly easily possible in ClearPoint. And another thing that we've seen people do in ClearPoint is to take the projects that they're reporting on in ARPA, and then also link them. I'm translating it to Virginia Beach language, either to the performance area, VB performance, or into VB strategy, saying, this is where because sometimes people spend money in different ways for ARPA. So if it's a particular, easily called out project, you can have it reporting in one area and also report up in ARPA as well. So we still have time for a few more questions. So you've talked about, your old process was using, Excel and trying to create that master process. And then you view this as a more modern view. Any other benefits you've seen from from ClearPoint? Like, are you getting different levels of buy-in across the organization?
At first, it was challenging to get folks invested into this because, as with anything unfamiliar, it takes time. It takes practice. It takes mundaneness into it. Like, you have to do it often, and then it becomes habitual.
Right.
So hence the crawl, walk, and run, because this office being newly established, essentially, and using now this new platform from Excel, which everyone is familiar with, takes a little bit of an adjustment. So that is still an ongoing process. And we've been refining the look and feel of ClearPoint so that it seems more approachable, because it can be overwhelming for someone who doesn't know what they're doing, of course. So we have these training sessions that go along with it. And ClearPoint actually started off with a few training sessions with us, which is really helpful. But one of the key features that I liked is the briefing books, which we've used for advanced meeting materials. So we would send it out the week before any of the meetings. And that's something that we actually didn't do previously. So it's not about streamlining a process. It's an entirely new rhythm that we've found now, which we really love, because it gives folks some time to digest it beforehand, like city manager and senior leadership, before the meeting, so that it's a more productive meeting, because some of the meetings are half an hour, others are an hour and a half. So we want to make sure we make good use of the time.
Yeah, so a question came in because we're using ClearPoint acronyms.
Oh, sorry.
The briefing book, so it's a read ahead document. It's exported directly from ClearPoint. What is your typical briefing book? Is it everything you're going to discuss in the meeting? Is it a highlight? Like, or is it different for different departments?
So essentially, the briefing book that we've started using is essentially what you see in viewing screen of ClearPoint. So what I showed you as the department director, the banner with the department director, department mission and vision, the highlights, the resource metrics, the expenditures and revenue, and then the highlights and challenges, progress for the last few months, focus for the next 3 months. That's all printed out ahead of time. So we don't have to talk about all of the things, but it's a good starting point for review ahead of the meeting. But essentially, it's a carbon copy of what you see on the screen.
Oh, perfect. So no surprises. So one more question came in, and then I'm going to ask a wrap-up question. But you've been talking a lot about, like, we're doing this and we're doing that, and it sounds like it's the OPA team. So to what extent are, like, how many other, I guess we'd say individual or other teams kind of active in ClearPoint? Like, are y'all the puppet master doing all the work, or are other people actively in there doing a lot of work?
Oh no, we only, so for the briefing books, we print out ahead of time and we send it out to senior leadership, but all the departments have a license. So we use them as updaters, and so they can actually update the information prior to the meetings, and then on a monthly basis as well. So they are active in there. Some are more active than others, I will caveat. But they are all active. They each have a license, and we wanted to ensure that we get that in place. And now we actually just upgraded our license to unlimited license. So we're going to hand out more licenses so that there's redundancy in a good way, so that there's a backup for those updaters.
Oh, awesome. Well, you showed us a lot of things about what you're doing kind of in the future with ARPA and permitting and the sustainability plan. So I can see why you'd be using, a lot more licenses coming forward. So I'll ask this as my final question. Since you've been using ClearPoint now for a year, like, what advice would you give someone who was just getting started, or even in Excel at the moment?
I would say crawl, walk, and run, because it's overwhelming in a good way, because there's so many features. So what I wish I had done actually prior to rolling it out was to earmark even more time with ClearPoint, our account manager, who's incredibly helpful, to plan out the template of what we wanted the DPPs to look like, for what we wanted the sustainability plan to look like. And that has all, what you saw today was an evolution. It was a refinement along the way, literally up until a few months ago. So I wish we had dedicated time ahead of rolling it out. And it's not that we didn't, it's just being more methodical about it, and timing obviously was just a factor. But I would say to crawl, walk, and run first, and not to think that what you're starting off with is the end product, because there's so many features in ClearPoint. So, and I'm not even that well versed in it at this point, because there's so many still left to learn.
Yeah, excellent. Tam, I really appreciate your time today, sharing the screen, the plans, answering all these questions. We're super appreciative. So
Thank you so much.
thank you. Have a good
Thanks.
rest of your day.
You too.